In Somalia, for instance, it's estimated that a whole generation has lost out on an education because the fighting has lasted years. The long-running Israeli-Palestinian conflict has wrecked much, and education is one of the casualties. Katja Adler reports from Gaza.
School time in Gaza. The streets are crowded. Most people who live here are under 18. 9-year-old Huda and her brother and sister set off from their makeshift home. Their real one was bombed earlier this year in a war with Israel. Their school, run by the United Nations, came under attack too. People in the school said it was raining fire that day. Israel launched white phosphorus it says was aimed at protecting Israeli soldiers from Palestinian gunmen. But the school was packed with families sheltering from the war. 2 little brothers were killed here. Women and children were wounded. Some classrooms burnt beyond recognition. They've since been repainted, but the children's memories of that day can't be erased. Everything was burnt and destroyed here, Mahmoud told us. How can we forget the war? Lots of people died. The Israelis bombed our things. Why shouldn't we get an education like they do? It's our right to live in freedom and safety. Israel's military offensive is over, but it still wants to punish Gaza's government, run by men who believe Israel shouldn't exist. Israel limits supplies coming into Gaza, so rebuilding war damage is almost impossible. Life for everyone here is tough. People here in Gaza say they feel they're living in an open-air prison, and because of tensions with Israel, say they're always waiting for the next war, and there's nowhere to run. The borders with Gaza are sealed shut. So the kids of Gaza say however much education they get, their future feels bleak.
What's the time?
What's the
Time number 2, what's the time?
Teachers in Gaza say living in a war zone affects children's performance at school. Huda, like many of her friends, suffers from nightmares. At night, I dream the Israelis will come back and bomb us, Huda told me. I'm scared. At school we study and play, but we still remember the days of the war. Between Israeli airstrikes and Palestinian gunmen firing rockets from their neighborhoods, being a child in Gaza means growing up with conflict.
During the war, according to the UN, 7 schools were destroyed and another 159 damaged in Gaza. Across the border, 9 Israeli schools and kindergartens were hit by Hamas rockets. Katja Adler spoke to 2 students on the other side of the border in the town of Sderot.
So, when a rocket is fired from Gaza, what happens next? You guys are at school, what happens?
The children start to run to safety place. They start to call their family, and they all the time in the mind that something can happen with their little brother in the kindergarten, or something with their parents. And some cry, some shake, and we can concentrate it in our classes.
When you talk to school children in Gaza, they say, look at us, so many of us are killed in wars with Israel, whereas in Sderot, not many children die, not many are injured, not many rockets are actually fired.
I have a cousin that lost his legs, 2 cousins actually. In Gaza war, my brother came to me some days and said, I'm going to die. It's unusual, it's not normal that 5 or 6 years old will tell it to his brother.
I have a message for the other side. We don't hate them. And we want peace and we don't want wars. We want to be friends.
It is one of the real tragedies of war, the destruction not just of lives and property, but also human potential. War is, of course, a man-made catastrophe, but Mother Nature can be just as cruel and unforgiving in denying children an education. She can level schools with hurricanes and earthquakes, set communities back with floods and landslides. Duncan Kennedy reports from Italy.
In L'Aquila, the school run is more of a school dash. Past the levelled and unstable buildings that used to be homes, businesses and schools. For 18-year-old Jacopo Purificati, the earthquake changed everything.
You can't really realize how devastating a earthquake can be if you don't leave it.
Here is the old school, after you. This is the first time in 6 months Jacopo has been back to his school.
I never thought to see this building again in these conditions.
He now realizes he took his education for granted.
It's all gone. It all makes me shiver.
April's earthquake killed around 300 people, left 50,000 without homes, and shut down school life for L'Aquila's children. The routine, the daily habits for those like Jacopo came to an end.
Thousands of buildings and homes were devastated in that earthquake, including, of course, Jacopo's school here, which was left like this. Both the pupils and the teachers had to decide what to do next, to try and come back here and rebuild and save their 200 years of history, or to start all over again. And they came to the conclusion that with their thirst to learn, beginning all over was the way forward.
So they moved here, to the other side of the city, defying what nature has done to them and starting again. Converting this half-used building, and all of it driven by pupils and teachers, motivated by the simple desire to learn.
The strength came from the pupils. They have very close ties to this city, and it's they who have created this miracle.
This school may not have the history of the old one, but that doesn't seem to matter now.
It's quite a rebirth. Everything starts again, and I can feel the importance of learning. I can feel the importance of friendships. When I think at myself 6 months ago, I see a young guy. Now I see a man.
Education in an earthquake zone, now even more cherished.
Getting a good education is about so much more than getting a high-paying job. Save the Children says an education allows children to develop the skills and confidence they need to strengthen their societies, break the cycle of poverty, and build peace in their communities. But as we've seen, millions of children are having an uphill battle developing those skills. And if they fail, millions of others will be poorer for it.
The drive, the